G'day everyone, I'm Dan. Welcome to Van Diemen's Land Model Bench and to our kit build. And this time we're going to be building this, the Revell 1/76 scale M16 half track. And those of you who have been around on the planet for a few years probably know what that means. This is in fact a rebox. It's a rebox originally of a Matchbox kit that came out sometime in the 70s. I'm not sure exactly the date, but if I bring up my book here I've got on Matchbox kits, we can actually see there's the original artwork for it, and it looked pretty spectacular. These were great kits when they first came out. They were in the same scale as the Airfix equivalent, so if you already had some Airfix tanks, these were in the same scale. But they also added some new features, so they were 2-color kits, which was pretty cool as a kid, and also they all came with this feature. They all came with a diorama base, which was just amazing. As a young fellow, I absolutely fell in love with these kits. I thought they were awesome. But while I built quite a few of them, I never actually built the half track, so I'm really looking forward to having a go at it. So let's have a look and see what we're going to be building. Okay, there are basically 2 sprues. The sprues are now molded just in one colour. The original ones would have been in 2 colours. And we've got our tracks here as well. The tracks aren't particularly detailed. I can show you there's a little bit of detail on the outside of them, and they're just plain inside. As far as I can tell, these are exactly the same as the original release, except I think they were in like a steely grey colour originally. That's sort of an attempt to be metal, whereas now they've just moulded them in the black. We've lost the 2 colour obviously, and we've gone just to a single sort of olive drab type colour. The moulds themselves seem to have held up really well though. You can see the detail there on that little diorama section there. It's actually really good. Keep in mind this is the 1970s era kit, and we're dealing with a very small model too. It's smaller than 1/72 scale, so quite impressive really. Some nice detail there. We've got tread on the tyres. Yeah, really, it's really nice actually. I quite like it. Some jerry cans there, so that's pretty good. Looking at our second sprue there, you can see we've got a complete chassis, which is really nice. So even when you hold this model up and look underneath, you're going to see a bit of detail. Again, for the scale, that's pretty impressive. And as is this too, actually. I don't know, hopefully the camera will pick it up. But if I just put that in the right light there, hopefully you're seeing it. But there's actually some very fine rivet detail on the sides of the, just here and here, on the side of the half track. Really nicely done. Even the hinges and things like that look really nice for the scale. So even today I wouldn't be too unhappy with that. That looks pretty good. And we have got one little remnant, if you like, of its Matchbox days. You can see there it's got made in, and then they've tried to alter the mould so you can't see it, but originally it would have said made in England. And in fact, if I hold it just the right angle, I can still see the words England there. The other giveaway is the code PK78, which would have been the original kit number that Matchbox assigned to this particular model. So there you go. Looks pretty good to me. Let's have a quick look at the instructions and see what they've done with those. So first thing you notice is they've redone them obviously in the Revell style. They had a sort of house style, if you like. So we've got the usual safety instructions and all that sort of thing you would expect. Being a 70s kit, shouldn't take too long to do. Don't remember the layout of the parts like that originally. I think that might be new because I don't think the Matchbox originally had those. But these instructions look suspiciously like Matchbox to me. I seem to recall those sort of numbers and the little diagrams and things. So I think they've based them on the original Matchbox. But you can see anyway, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to be doing the wheels. We're going to be doing the chassis, then we're going to start putting the body on top, and then when we finish that we're going to go over the page here and start working on the gun, ammunition boxes and so forth, and then finally doing some work on the diorama. So you can see why as a young bloke, you know, this was just fantastic. You could buy this on your pocket money and it's like a real kit. It's got all these extra steps in it and the diorama and stuff. It's just amazing. Looking across to see what markings we've got 2 options. We can build one of the 5th US Armoured Division Normandy, France in 1944, and the second option is for the 2nd US Armoured Division Hell on Wheels, Germany, 1945. So both late war sort of markings. They both seem to be the same basic colour, so it's really just a matter of which one you like. This one is a little bit more sort of as it would have been from the factory. This one's had a little bit more customisation done with some artwork on the door. They're pretty much the same colour scheme, so we'll wait and see what the decals look like and make our mind up on that. So there we go, that's the instructions. Decals, I haven't seen them. What is for in here? This is some sort of a safety notice, so hopefully they're in here. Okay, so I think this is just a safety notice. Yep, this is some cautions in about 7 different languages. Okay, let's have a look at this. We'll see if we can zoom in a bit. One good thing about getting the Revell issue, of course, is we get new decals, which is nice because I imagine the Matchbox ones are looking a bit ordinary at this point, given their age. So, yep, looks okay. Printed in England? No, printed in Italy in 2008. So this is would be around the time this kit was reissued. And all the decals are white, so there is some ones to put on the door there if we want. They look fine. So we'll make a decision about that a bit later, I think, because there's no tearing hurry since they're both going to have the same basic colour to the body. Alright, so let's get building. So what I'm doing here is just putting the wheels together, but there's no real sort of positive alignment on them, and I don't want to glue them onto the chassis just yet, but what I'm doing is just temporarily at least sticking them on there just so I can get the alignment right so that they're going to sit properly when I put the tracks on. So you can see there. So once I've got them lined up properly, I'll take them back off and let them dry. And then I'll do the same on the other side. Okay, so I've put most of the chassis together, but I've elected not to put the wheels on, the large wheels on for the tracks, because I think that might make it a bit easier when it comes to doing a test fit on the tracks a bit later on. And I also haven't fitted the front wheels because in this kit, which is pretty cool, you can see you've got separate hubs, and it'll be easier to paint the tyres and get a nice neat line on the hub if I leave that separate. So I'm going to paint those separately and then assemble them afterwards. So that hasn't really made much of a difference. You can see it still looks there, it still fits pretty good. And yeah, really nice level of detail for the scale. Really quite nice. They all fit together very well. So next we're going to start working on a body. Okay, so we're now up to, basically I just finished step 9. I've left the tracks off, and I've left the row wheels off and the wheels, the main wheels for the track as well, just for now. But I've assembled everything else, and I've got to say, it went together really, really well. This is a terrific kit. Now, it's a bit easy to do these days with to me is extra thin. That makes the job a lot easier than it was back in the day with tube glue. but really not too bad. The level of detail on a scale this size is really quite good. So I'm quite happy with it. So once you finish step 9, the next step is start working on the machine guns. I'm going to skip those steps for now, come back and do that as a separate assembly, and then put that in after I've finished painting and detailing the actual half track. So I think what I'm going to do here is just add a few bit of details on the back of the half track and glue the base together to make up the diorama, and then we should be ready for priming.
That's good.
Okay, so I've just started working on the actual machine guns, and this part's going to need a little bit of time to dry and for a bit of sanding and things like that, possibly a bit of filling. First bit of the kit actually might even need it. So in the meantime, I thought I might as well get a start on the body of the half track here and also on the base. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try out some Life Colour olive drab contrast and desaturation set on the half track itself. I've picked this paint because the light colour paint works really well as far as preserving detail is concerned. There's some really lovely fine detail on this model I don't want to lose under the paint. For the base, I'm going to use some Tamiya spray can paint. This is their TS69, which is Linoleum Deck Brown. So that's a really good base colour for doing the diorama base. And I'm also going to give the tracks a bit of paint, so I'm going to give them a coat of AK Interactive Surface Primer for tracks. So what I'm doing here is just adding some different colours onto the ballast. Let me zoom in a bit here for you. So I'm just adding a few different colours with this Life Colour Debris and Rubble set. And just going over it and adding a few colours. I'm going to put some filters over this, so I'm not too worried if the colour is fairly strong at the moment. Okay, I'm going to give a go with this MIG Stone Grey for black wash and see how we go with that. Another rather interesting product. This is Tamiya's Grass Effect. It's kind of like mud, but you thin it down by just using the equivalent of X20A. It's another brand, but it's the same thing. And just thinning it down. This will be the starting point for the ridge. As you can see there. Probably have to add a little bit more colour to it. Might use an airbrush, might use some other grasses, I haven't decided yet. I'm just going through some of my model railway, some pieces that I've got, to see what I could find that might work with this particular base. So I'm just putting a little bit extra green on here just to mix up the colours a bit and add a bit more depth. Okay, so I've just given the ballast here a little bit of a covering of mid cold grey wash just to tone it down a little bit. Highlight some of the ballast. Doesn't look too bad. It's got to dry yet, so it'll be a little more subtle once it's dried, but it's looking alright. So while the enamel wash is still wet, I'm going to put a little bit of life colour pigment onto the rails themselves. Okay, so I just did off camera some work on the bomb crater there. So I just tried out some new products I haven't used before. It they work well. This is Mr. Weathering Paste. So this is mud brown, and I used a little bit of mud white, which is really a light brown I mixed into it. And then for the water, I used some of Mr. Weathering Paste Wet Clear. And looks fantastic. I'm really happy with it actually. It looks really good. So we'll have to let that dry. But while that's dry, I'm going to put the base colour on for the sleepers themselves. So I just added a little bit of Tamiya weathering powders there for the tops of the rails. So this is Tamiya's weathering powder set F, which I'm using the light gunmetal out of. And I'm just putting a bit of it on the top of the tracks here just to give the impression that it may not have been a main line, but it was being used to some extent at least before the bombing took it out, basically. Okay, so the weathering powder's now been done on the sleepers and they look pretty good. So I think the next thing I'll do is I want to change the colour of this a little bit. The green's just not quite what I'm after. So I think I might get the airbrush out and do a little bit of detail work. After I'd finished doing most of the scenery, I sprayed some AK Interactive matte varnish just to tone down the sleepers and the surrounding ballast. And then I sealed in all the scenic work with some Woodlands Scenic Cement. And here's the final result. Okay, so it's about now I'd like to be able to show you my painting of the half track, but unfortunately the second camera that I was using to film all the painting didn't work, so I've lost that footage. But anyway, it's an olive drab, so it's not much to show really. I did use the life colour set, modulation set, but I toned it down a little bit in the end using some Mission Models olive drab as well, just sprayed over the top to tone it all down a little bit. And then I started doing some of the sub-assemblies you can see here and some of the detailing. The decals were nice, but to my eyes at least, they looked to be a little bit out of scale. Certainly they looked different to what was in the instructions. But with a little bit of work and coaxing, I was able to get them all to work, although I had to move the star on the bonnet up further up than what was shown in the instructions for it to fit. Before I started applying the decals, I'd already coated the model with some Alclad gloss lacquer, and now that I've put all the decals on, it was time to spray the model with some Alclad Aqua Gloss. I use that because it doesn't react to the enamel washes that I use in this step. Before I went ahead and painted all the small detail parts, I gave the entire model a coat of Alclad matte lacquer. I used colours and pigments from Life Colours Rust and Pigment Set for the exhaust. I used Mr. Weathering paste for all the mud effects on the side of the half track. This was just an awesome kit to build. It was so much fun to build something that just took a few days to do and still came out looking, well, I think, pretty good. If you're looking for a simple kit, you want to get away from the Dragon kits with a million parts or the photo etch, I really can recommend this one. It went together beautifully and it's a lot of fun to build. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the build, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.
A kilometre is 1,000 metres in length, and that's about 5/8 of a mile, kilometres per hour. 60 miles per hour is about 100 kilometres per hour, and 35 miles per hour is about 60 kilometres per hour. The new speed limit signs are white, black, with a red circle. For safety's sake, learn the new signs and know what they mean.